if it's all right with you, I'm just going to put a few of our viewers' questions to you, if that's OK. We do that every single time on this particular time of the show. So, someone on Twitter, they've not actually left a real name on this anyway, so there's no point reading the fake one out. Can you be fined for not wearing a mask, and can you be prosecuted for refusing to pay? Do you have to give your name or details to those wanting to fine you? Gosh, do you have any answers for that?
These are good questions. The answer is that nobody really knows yet. As I understand it, what the government's done is have said that they are either going to introduce a regulation tomorrow, or they're going to amend an existing regulation to mandate the wearing of masks, which, if you don't follow that regulation, you could, in theory, be fined, not for a crime, but for a sort of civil penalty. So if they get all of their ducks in a row legally, then they'll be able to make it unlawful to enter a shop or other premises that are covered by the regulation. But they can't lock you in prison or anything like that.
Oh, good stuff. That's nice to know. That's a win. Well, Rose on Facebook has said, what can be done about the spread of misinformation and conspiracy theories that are dominating the internet? I suspect Rose is asking there about whether or not it could become illegal, or is illegal, I suppose, to post misinformation online?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very interesting topic, because you mentioned earlier that I've been involved in a lot of high-profile cases, and I have. And I have to say, I've sat in court all day and then come out of court and flick through Twitter or flick through the news feeds and realise that they're talking about the case I've been in court for all day, and it doesn't bear any resemblance to what actually happened, and the misrepresentation that goes on. I mean, just as a matter of common sense, if you think about it, in a court hearing, we could be in court for 4.5 hours in a day, one day, and the trial could go on for several months, and the news headline is 6 or 7 or 10 words. So obviously it's going to be very, very difficult to capture the detail. But I think the answer, from my point of view, in terms of the criminal justice system and the misinformation that's out there on social media and in the in the media more generally, is come to court and watch what we do. It's all, anyone can come any day of the week, any day of the week, Monday to Friday. Come along, watch what really happens. If there's a high-profile case that you're interested in, go along to the court and have a seat in the public gallery and watch justice done properly and watch justice done for real. Now, for me, ultimately, I think they should have cameras in every single court in the land, so that every single citizen can exercise their right to see what's done by way of justice in their name. That's my view. We're a long way off that happening. But you've got the right to walk into any court in the country anytime you want, and you can watch what's going on, and that's the best way to make sure you really know the way the justice system works.
No, I couldn't agree more, actually, because certainly when I was starting out as a local reporter, one of the main reasons, or in fact the reason really, why I had to learn shorthand up to 100 words a minute, ended up doing it to 110, don't like to go on about it, mate, but you know how it is. But I was so that when I was in court, I obviously wasn't allowed to record anything. So I had to make sure that I got everything right there. And then also, as well, when I was in court, there were numerous things, especially things like rape trials, for example. When someone's accused of rape, which is a very difficult thing to prove, naturally, in certain circumstances anyway, there's usually a big headline, a massive headline, so-and-so, accused of rape. Now, the way that the public can read that all too often is that they are guilty of rape. And then, as and when a not guilty verdict comes in, very often, especially in local media, you will get, a nib down the side with that person's name, so-and-so, cleared. But actually, everyone in that community just remembers that first headline that says that. And so I think, actually, you're right. Cameras in court, for example, would be a big step forward. I think allowing journalists, not sure where they are now, it has been a while since I've been to court, but allowing us to record things in court so that we can actually go out there and make sure, be absolutely sure we can represent all the facts correctly, I think would be a big step forward. We've got another question for you here. We can just about squeeze it in. Lee on email has asked, does Chris have any particular view on Colin Pitchfork getting recalled to prison? How could those responsible for his release get this so wrong? What are your views?
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken about this case quite a bit. I don't think the parole board got it wrong at all. It seems to me that what happened was that they did a risk assessment, and a very substantial body of risk assessments and psychological profiles and everything else, and they decided that the only way that he could conceivably be safe to be released was if he had this whole range of conditions about what he could and couldn't do. Now, as I understand it, from what's in the public domain, he breached those conditions within a few weeks of being released, and is therefore be recalled to prison. And that seems to me that's exactly how the system should work. If someone breaches the terms of their licence conditions, he's got a life sentence. In fact, he's got 2 life sentences. And that means that he is subject to being recalled any time until he dies. And for me, this is a classic example of the system working. You know, he broke the rules. He knew the rules. He had to sign a piece of paper to say that he knew the rules, broke them, got locked up. And that's exactly how it's supposed to happen.
That's interesting. I mean, I know that a lot of people were saying as well that, look, what was the point in taking the risk with this guy, you know? And yeah, all right, he had his conditions and he breached those, and maybe this is a case of it functioning, but, you know, would they have maybe necessarily stopped him if it had only taken a minute for him to do something? But we'll never know, and thankfully he is back where he is now, I suppose. Just last one, actually. We've got a quick one for you, and then we will leave you to crack on with that wonderful gin palace that you've got behind you there. Does Chris think that Prince Andrew, should face the courts in the US to at least clear his name? What do you reckon to that?
Well, it's a very good question. I have to say, if I am a defence lawyer and I'm asked to advise clients, often very high-profile clients, and the answer is a very straightforward one. My advice to Prince Andrew will be don't go anywhere near the United States, because if you do, you're going to be arrested and you'll end up in prison. So obviously, if that's something that Prince Andrew wants to take on board, it's free advice from me. But the chances of him actually going to the United States and to coming to the jurisdiction of the US, I think are very, very slim indeed. And if he did, he'd be very badly advised.